Once upon a time, in the heart of modern-day Lagos, amidst the towering glass buildings and the endless rhythm of honking cars and danfos, there lived a man named Chike Obi. To the world, Chike was just another face in the crowd, a delivery man weaving through the city's traffic with his faded backpack, dusty sneakers, and brown uniforms soaked in sweat. But what the world didn't know was that Chike Obi wasn't a delivery man at all. By blood, by birth, and by empire, Chike Obi was a billionaire. At just 32, Chike had built one of the most successful logistics and tech infrastructure companies in Africa. His company, Obi Express, powered deliveries for banks, tech firms, embassies, even hospitals. His name echoed in investor meetings and on Forbes lists. His face, however, was rarely seen. Because Chike valued privacy. And more than that, he longed for peace. He had everything. A mansion nestled in Banana Island. A fleet of luxury cars. A private chef. Endless access to wealth. But what he didn't have was someone who loved him for him. Not for his money. Not for his name. Not for the circles he moved in. Someone who would see him in a crowd of nobodies and still offer kindness. Someone who wouldn't look past him when his clothes weren't pressed or his shoes weren't shining. Someone like his mother had once been to his father, back when love wasn't filtered through status. One rainy night, Chike sat alone on his balcony. The mansion was silent except for the gentle patter of rain against glass. In his hand was an old photo. His mother, smiling, cradling him as a baby, her eyes full of light. She had passed 10 years ago, but her voice still echoed in his head. Son, if you ever want to know who truly cares about your soul, strip off everything the world gave you. Then watch who still reaches out to hold your hand. And so, he made a decision. The very next morning, Chike summoned Kola, his oldest friend and now head of his private security detail. Oga, Kola blinked as he listened. You one disguise as Wetin? As a delivery man, Chike said calmly. But not under Obi Express. I'll register with one of those third-party rider apps. No one must know. Not the board, not the media. Not even my staff. Kola gaped. You're talking about traffic, heat, insults from customers. You know Lagos people don't smile when package delay. Chike chuckled. Exactly. If I can survive that world and still meet someone who sees me, not the delivery vest, not the scooter, not the packaging, then maybe I'll know it's real. That afternoon, the transformation began. Chike's private stylist gave him a thick beard and dreadlock extensions. His skin was darkened with organic oil to mimic a sunburnt tone. He wore old sneakers, tattered jeans, and a faded brown shirt with the patch of a fictional courier service called SwiftGo. His expensive cologne was traded for the smell of sweat and dust. Within 48 hours, Chike Obi, the billionaire, was gone. And in his place stood Chike, the struggling delivery guy, riding a second-hand scooter through the madness of Lagos traffic. His first day was a lesson in humility. At 6 a.m., he clocked into the app and received his first order, a food package delivery to a high-rise apartment in Victoria Island. The receptionist at the gate barely looked at him. Wait outside, she barked. Delivery boys no day enter. Chike waited under the scorching sun for 40 minutes before someone collected the package. No thanks. No eye contact. Later that afternoon, he delivered a package to a young man in Lekki who screamed at him for arriving 10 minutes late, even though the app's delay was due to an error out of his control. You people are useless, the man barked, flinging the package to the ground. Is it every day I'll be dealing with riffraff like you? Chike's face remained calm. But inside, something twisted. As dusk fell, exhausted and hungry, Chike found a shaded corner outside a local cafe to rest. His hands ached from hours of gripping the scooter handles. His back was drenched in sweat. That was when he heard a soft voice. Excuse me, would you like some puff-puff? He looked up. A girl stood before him. Maybe late 20s. She wore a mustard blouse and dark jeans, her hair tied back in a scarf. There was no pity in her eyes. Just quiet warmth. I saw you resting here, she said, offering him a small paper bag. My mom always said, never eat good food in front of a hungry man without sharing. Chike blinked. No one had offered him anything all day. Not even a smile. He took the puff, nodded. Thank you. God bless you. She smiled. Take care of yourself, delivery man. Then she walked away. Chaik watched her disappear down the street, heart pounding for reasons he couldn't explain. He didn't even get her name. That night, back in the safe house he had rented for his disguise, Chaik lay on a thin mattress, holding the last puff in the bag. She didn't even ask for anything in return, he whispered. He stared at the ceiling, a faint smile playing at his lips. For the first time in a long time, he felt hope. The next morning, Chaik woke up before the sun. He was sore. His hands ached. His back protested every movement. But none of that mattered, because the image of the woman from yesterday still lingered in his mind. The way she had looked at him, not with pity, not with judgment, but with simple, human compassion. And he hadn't even asked for it. Her face kept appearing in his thoughts, between delivery drop-offs and Lagos traffic. It wasn't about love yet. It was something deeper, recognition. The first person in a long time who had seen him without his armor and still offered kindness. He didn't know her name. He didn't know where she lived. All he knew was the puff and the way she said, delivery man. So he returned to the same cafe corner where he had seen her. He parked his scooter, sat on the same slab of concrete, and waited. Hours passed. People walked by. Some barely looked his way. Others wrinkled their noses. One man shouted at him for obstructing the sidewalk, even though Chaik had quietly shifted to the edge. Just as he was about to give up, he saw her. Same scarf. Same blouse. Same focused expression. She carried a plastic bag, likely groceries. She hadn't noticed him yet. Excuse me, Chaik said softly, rising to his feet. She paused. Looked at him. Recognition flickered in her eyes. You again, she said with a small smile. Still delivering? He smiled back. Still trying. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. Have you eaten? He hesitated. Not yet. Without a word, she opened her bag and handed him a bottle of water and a wrapped sandwich. It's nothing fancy, but better than being hungry. Thank you, Chaik replied, his voice thick. Again. She shrugged. You looked like you needed it. What's your name? He asked, daring to step forward. Amara, she said. And you? Chaik. Nice to meet you, Chaik the delivery man. And with that, she walked off again. But this time, he watched the direction she went. That night, Chaik didn't return home to the mansion. He didn't even go to his safe house immediately. He sat on the scooter outside a quiet cul-de-sac where Amara had disappeared earlier. He waited until the streetlights came on. Eventually, he saw her. She stepped out of a modest two-bedroom flat, holding a plastic chair, placing it outside. Then she sat. Across the street, a few children were playing with deflated footballs. She called one over and handed him a bottle of water. Chaik watched this woman, simple, kind, quiet. She didn't know him. She didn't need to. And yet she gave. The next day, Chaik made sure his routes passed that neighborhood again. He delivered a package to a bakery 2 blocks away. Then waited. He saw her again, this time walking with a small girl, maybe 10 years old, laughing as they crossed the street. You're always around this area, she said when she spotted him. Do you live here? Chaik shrugged. Sort of. I rest here between deliveries. Well, she said, reaching into her bag, I only packed 1 meat pie today, but... No, please, he said quickly, I'm okay. You've given enough. She raised an eyebrow. You're refusing meat pie? You must not be Nigerian. He laughed. For the first time in a long time, it was genuine. Fine. I'll take it. Thank you, Amara. She sat with him briefly. Just 5 minutes. But in those 5 minutes, Chaik learned more about her than he had from any woman in suits and perfume and gold. She was a primary school teacher, passionate about her pupils. She helped take care of her younger cousin, whose parents were in the village. She dreamt of opening a small learning center in the neighborhood someday. And all this, she shared while munching her own snack, seated beside a man she believed to be a broke delivery guy. You don't talk much about yourself, she observed, tossing her serviette into a bin. Not much to say, Chike replied. I'm just trying to figure life out. She didn't push. Just smiled. Aren't we all? But for every act of kindness, the world made sure to remind Chike what it thought of people like him. Later that afternoon, he delivered a parcel to a luxury apartment complex in Ikoi. The security guard barely looked at him before saying, Go round back. Deliveries don't use this entrance. Chike obeyed without protest. As he rounded the corner, 2 teenage boys standing outside the compound laughed at him. Bro, you need better shoes? Those things look like they fought in a war. Make sure say you drop the package and disappear. Rich people know like Siuna type. The sting wasn't new. But today it cut a little deeper. Because today he knew what it was to be seen, if only briefly. As he climbed back onto his scooter, he muttered, This city teaches you to be invisible, unless you have something to offer. That night, back at the safe house, Cola visited. You day alright? Cola asked, looking him over. You've lost weight, Oga? I've found something better than weight, Chike replied. I found a woman who gave me her last meat pie without asking anything in return. Cola's eyes widened. Is it time for reveal? Chike shook his head. No, not yet. I want to know if it's real. I want to be sure before she knows the truth. And if she finds out you've been lying? Then I lose her, Chike said, but at least I'll know I tried with my whole heart. The next morning, Amara wasn't at her usual spot. Chike waited. An hour passed. Then 2. Still no sign. He rode past the school she had mentioned. That's when he saw her, standing outside the school gates, arguing with a man in a suit. Her expression was tense. The man waved a document in her face. She looked exhausted. Chike parked his scooter at a distance, watching carefully. The man walked off. Amara looked like she might cry. Instead, she turned, adjusted her bag, and walked back into the school. Chike's chest tightened. What's going on in your world, Amara? He whispered. And how long can I stay on the outside looking in? Chike didn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about the man in the suit, the document, and Amara's face, the way her shoulders had slumped the moment the man walked away. The way her lips moved like she was repeating something to herself. Something heavy. He wanted to call her. But he didn't have her number. He wanted to walk into the school and ask. But he wasn't supposed to know she worked there. So the next day, Chike clocked in early, mapped his delivery route to go past the school, again. He waited. And waited. At lunchtime, Amara finally stepped out. She looked exhausted. Her hair tied back in a tighter scarf than usual. Her steps slower. Her eyes slightly red, like someone who had cried the night before but didn't want to admit it. She spotted him across the road. Well, she said, trying to smile. Chike, the delivery man. You again. Chike grinned, but inside he was worried. Can't help it. You're the only person in this city who gives me free puff and meat pie. She laughed weakly, then sighed. I needed that, she said. Today's been a rough one. Want to talk about it? Chike asked carefully. She looked at him for a long time. You ever had to fight to keep something that should already be yours? She asked, her voice distant. Like this school, she said, gesturing behind her. It's a private community school, but the landlord wants to sell the building. If we don't pay 3 months back rent in 2 weeks, we'll be evicted. Chike blinked. 3 months rent? He repeated. 600,000 naira, she replied, matter-of-factly. I've raised 150. My principal collapsed from the stress 2 days ago. The kids, they have nowhere else to go. Chike looked at her, heart racing. She was carrying the weight of other people's futures. On a teacher's salary. With no cameras watching. No applause. No social media posts. Just quiet grit. Later that night, Chike sat in his temporary flat, his face buried in his hands. He could have paid that 600,000 naira without blinking. But if he did, she'd know. And the experiment would be over. So he called Cola. She needs help, Chike said. But I can't give it directly. It has to come from somewhere else. An anonymous donor. A grant. Something believable. Cola was quiet on the other end of the line. You're really falling for this girl, ABI? He asked finally. I already have, Chaik admitted. The next day, Chaik made a call to his foundation's CFO. Quietly, subtly, he requested that a microeducation support grant be issued through a third-party NGO. No names. No associations. Just help. By evening, the school received a formal letter. You've been selected for a one-time educational resilience grant of 650,000 Nigerian nairas. Please find attached proof of bank transfer. No application necessary. You were nominated by a third-party field volunteer. When Amara got the news, Chaik was sitting across the street, eating suya from a paper wrap, pretending not to watch. He saw her scream. Hug a fellow teacher. Tears in her eyes. A full, unguarded smile. She had no idea who had helped her. She didn't need to know. Chaik just leaned back and whispered, "That smile was worth more than 100 million. But the world wasn't done testing them. The very next day, while Chaik was on a delivery run to an office complex, he heard shouting. A security guard was being berated by a woman in heels and sunglasses. As Chaik stepped out of the elevator, he accidentally bumped her arm. "Watch where you're going," she snapped. Chaik stepped back. "Sorry, ma." "Sorry for yourself," she hissed. "Delivery men like you always smelling like engine oil." People around turned away awkwardly. Chaik said nothing, just handed his package to reception and walked out. But just as he stepped outside, the woman followed him. "Wait," she said, studying him. "What's your name?" Chaik blinked. "Why?" "Interesting," she said. "Rough edges, but good height. Decent face structure." Chaik didn't respond. "I have a friend who runs a modeling agency. Maybe you don't have to be a delivery boy forever." Chaik smiled politely. "Thank you, but I'm not interested." Her eyes narrowed. "You're refusing? Do you know who I am?" "No. But I know who I am," he said, voice firm. And with that, he mounted his scooter and sped off. Behind him, the woman muttered, "Your loss. Foolish delivery man." That night, he returned to Amara Street. She was sitting on her plastic chair again, reading a book under the soft yellow light of a rechargeable lamp. "You're always around here," she said as he approached. "Told you I rest here," Chaik said with a grin. She held up her book. "Want to hear a poem?" He nodded. She read, "He wore no crown but had a king's grace. The world passed him by without seeing his face. But those with eyes that look beyond gold see where the richest stories are told." Chaik's heart squeezed. "Who wrote that?" he asked. She looked at him. "My mother. She was a poet. Died when I was 14. Silence. Then Chaik whispered, "She raised a good woman." Amara blinked. The compliment caught her off guard. "Thanks," she said softly. "Can I take you out one day?" Chaik asked suddenly. Amara blinked. "As in, on a date?" "Yes." She hesitated, then smiled. "Maybe, but no fancy places. Just Puff Puff and Zobo. Deal?" "Deal." As he walked away that night, Chaik felt it fully. The connection, the warmth, the truth, but also the fear. He was falling fast. And soon he'd have to tell her everything. The question was, would she still love the man behind the helmet? 3 days passed. 3 days of pacing, delivery runs, awkward small talk, and 100 failed attempts at courage. Chaik had never been this nervous, not even during Billionaire board meetings or global investment pitches. But this wasn't about numbers. This was about Amara and their first official date. He had wanted to do something special. Buy her new clothes. Rent out a fancy restaurant. Call a violinist. Fly in a chef. But he knew that if he did that, it would all come crumbling down. His mask would fall. And the truth would arrive before he was ready to explain it. So instead, he followed her rules. No fancy places. Just Puff Puff and Zobo. They met at a small roadside joint Amara loved, tucked between a tailor's shop and a phone accessory stand. The plastic chairs were mismatched. The fan rotated with a squeaky protest. But it was alive, with laughter, fried air, and sizzling buns. Amara was already seated when Chaik arrived. Her scarf was blue this time. Her smile warm. "You're late, delivery man." I had to finish dropping someone's express shipment of Gala and cold Coke, he said, smirking. She laughed, sipping her Zobo. So, Mr. Chike, tell me something about you. And not the usual, I'm figuring life out line. Chike stiffened, then smiled carefully. All right, he said, staring at the red drink in his cup. I grew up in Suralere. Only child. My mum passed when I was 16. My dad wasn't around much. I got a scholarship to study logistics management. Finished school. Tried to find work. But you know how Lagos is. Hard to breathe if you don't know someone, Amara nodded. Exactly, he lied, swallowing guilt. So, what made you choose delivery work? Chike paused. I didn't choose it, he said slowly. But it gave me something I hadn't felt in years, freedom. Amara looked surprised. Freedom? While riding around in traffic with fumes and insults. He grinned. Exactly. I get to see life up close. Real life. People laughing, fighting, struggling, surviving. You can't get that behind glass walls and office suits. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing like she was trying to read his truth. You're different, Chike, she said finally. Different from the other guys I've met. Chike's stomach turned. If only she knew how different. They talked for hours. About books. Childhood. Life dreams. Amara wanted to one day build a library for underprivileged children in her neighborhood. Not some fancy one. Just 4 walls, books, and quiet space. People always talk about feeding the stomach, she said. But sometimes, the mind is starving too. Chike was quiet for a long moment. You're incredible, he said. She blushed. You say that like you've never met a woman who reads. Not one who reads and feeds others with it. She smiled. And something shifted in that moment, subtle but powerful. Later that evening, as they walked side by side down her street, Chike reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. They walked in silence. No titles. No pressure. Just fingers, warm and intertwined. You're not like most delivery men, Amara said suddenly. Chike froze. Why do you say that? She laughed. Most of them are impatient, rude, sweaty, but you quote poems, you listen, you ask questions, you... She stopped walking. Chike looked into her eyes. What if I told you? I'm just trying to be seen. Amara tilted her head. Aren't we all? That night, back at his temporary apartment, Chike stared at his reflection. He had almost told her. The words were right there. I'm not who you think I am. But he had swallowed them. Not out of cowardice, but fear. Because the more he loved her, the more he feared losing her. Kola visited the next morning. You've got that look, he said, walking in with a bag of groceries. The look of a man who's falling into dangerous waters. I can't stop thinking about her, Chike said. Then tell her the truth, Kola said simply. Not yet. Why? Because if I lose her after the truth, I lose her forever. But Lagos has a way of shaking secrets loose, whether you're ready or not. 2 days later, Chike was making a delivery in Ikeja when he heard familiar laughter across the road. Turned. Mark. Walking with a group of women. All teachers from her school. One of them spotted him and whispered something. Another one laughed. Loudly. Your delivery boyfriend is watching you, one of them teased. Amara turned, surprised, and smiled when she saw him. You stalking me, sir? Just securing my Zobo supplier, Chike replied. Her friends giggled. Don't mind us, one of them said. But Amara, be careful. These delivery boys, they can sweet talk but no plan for future. Amara smiled politely, but her voice was sharp. That delivery boy has more manners than half the bankers I've dated. The women exchanged glances. One raised an eyebrow. Interesting, she said, smirking. Well, we'll see. That night, Amara and Chike sat together under the starless Lagos sky. Your friends seem nice, Chike said. They mean well, she replied. But they think love comes with a paycheck. And you? I think love comes with peace. She leaned her head gently on his shoulder, and Chike knew he was running out of time. Sooner or later, someone would recognize his face. Sooner or later, a truth would be forced out, not revealed. And if that happened, he might lose everything. The sun was high over Lagos when Chike's past came knocking, uninvited. He had just finished a delivery at a boutique in Lekki when his phone buzzed. It wasn't the burner phone he used for his delivery account. It was his real phone, locked away in the scooter's storage compartment. Only 3 people had that number: his lawyer, his CFO, and Kola. Kola was calling. "Oga, problem day," Kola said without preamble. She came to the house. "Who?" "Genevieve." Chike's stomach turned. Genevieve Akant. Ex-girlfriend. Daughter of one of the biggest real estate moguls in Lagos. Beautiful. Ruthless. Status-obsessed. They had dated briefly 2 years ago. For 3 weeks. Enough time for her to tell every blog she was rumored fiancé to the billionaire tech CEO. Chike had ended it when she tried to get her friend a seat on Obi Express board. He hadn't heard from her since. Until now. Back at the mansion, Genevieve sat comfortably in his living room, legs crossed, sunglasses perched on her head. "Chike," she purred when he walked in, still dressed in his dusty delivery uniform, helmet under his arm. She blinked at his outfit. "Is this a costume party?" "What are you doing here, Genevieve?" he asked, dropping the helmet. "I missed you," she said, rising. "I heard rumors. That you disappeared. That you gave up board meetings for backstreets. At first, I thought it was silly. But then I realized it's kind of sexy." Chike's eyes narrowed. "You didn't come here for me." She smiled. "All right, fine. I have a business proposal. There's a new courier merger on the table. They want Obi Express as a partner. And they want me as the brand face. Perfect story, right? Billionaire and beauty, back together, saving Africa's logistics industry." He scoffed. "I'm not interested. In the merger. Or in the media circus." "Oh, Chike," she said, stepping closer. "You always want to be the humble hero. But the world eats men like you alive if you don't play the game." He moved past her. "The only game I'm playing right now is staying true to myself." "And does she know?" Genevieve asked, voice suddenly sharp. He froze. "The girl. The one from the streets. The one you're sneaking around with in broad daylight like some charity case. Does she know who you really are?" Chike's hands clenched. "Leave, Genevieve." "Fine," she said, adjusting her glasses. "But when she finds out who you are, and what you've been pretending to be, don't expect her to clap. You can hide in rags, Chike, but the world knows your face." She strutted out, heels clicking on marble like gunshots. That night, Chike didn't sleep. He stood on the balcony of his mansion, watching the lights of the city flicker like stars that refused to settle. Was Genevieve right? Was he playing a game? He wasn't testing Amara to mock her. He genuinely cared. He loved her. But the truth was still a time bomb. And every moment he delayed, the fuse grew shorter. The next day, Amara texted him for the first time. "Are you free later? I want to show you something." Chike replied immediately, "Name the time and place." She asked him to meet her at a local community center in Surulere. When he arrived, Amara was outside, holding a carton of books. She smiled when she saw him. "Good. You're strong. Help me carry this." "You tricked me," Chike said, laughing as he grabbed the box. Inside the center, children sat cross-legged on woven mats, listening to a volunteer read aloud from a worn-out storybook. "We run a weekend reading club here," Amara explained. "My students, most of them don't have storybooks at home. So I bring them here. We share what we can." Chike looked around. Faded walls. Broken fans. Smiles that refused to dim. It was beautiful. And humbling. Later, as they sat under a mango tree outside the center, Amara turned to him. "You know, when I was younger, I used to dream of a man who would sweep me off my feet. And now. She smiled. "I just want someone who stays." Chike looked at her. What if that man had secrets? "Everyone does," she replied. "It's not the secret that matters. It's what you do when it's no longer a secret." Her words sliced through him like a whisper through fog. She knew. Or maybe she didn't. But she could feel it. The distance. The mask. That evening, as they walked back to her flat, a black SUV slowly rolled past. Amara didn't notice. But Chaik did. He knew that vehicle. It belonged to his mother. The next day, Kola confirmed it. Your parents are watching, Olga. They know about her. Chaik's heart sank. What do they want? Same thing they always wanted, Kola said grimly. Control. Chaik had to make a choice. Tell Amara the truth himself, or let the world do it for him. And if the world told her first, she would never forgive him. The rain came unexpectedly that evening. It wasn't a dramatic thunderstorm, just a quiet drizzle that crept over the rooftops like a whisper. Amara stood outside her apartment, barefoot on the veranda, watching the water bead off the edge of the awning. Chaik was supposed to meet her that evening. He hadn't texted, hadn't called. Something felt off. She pulled her shawl tighter and went inside. Meanwhile, across the city, Chaik sat in his mansion, his two worlds colliding violently in his mind. He had drafted a message to her 3 times. There's something I need to tell you. Amara, I haven't been honest with you. Please don't hate me when you find out who I really am. But each one ended the same way. Deleted. Because the truth wasn't just a secret anymore. It was a storm, and it was already gathering. The next morning it hit. Not from him. Not from Kola. But from someone who had no right. Amara heard a knock at the school gate. She had just finished teaching a lesson on civic responsibility when one of the pupils called her. Auntie, Woman Day find you outside. She walked to the front gate and saw a woman in a neatly pressed suit, high heels, and an expensive lace wig. The woman smiled with practiced warmth. Miss Amara, I presume? Yes. Can I help you? The woman extended a hand. Clara Obi. Chaik's mother. Amara blinked. The name meant nothing at first. But the confidence. The car parked behind her. The bodyguard standing quietly at the corner. It all made sense. I think there's been a mistake, Amara said carefully. I don't know any. Oh, but you do, Clara said, smile hardening. You know him as Chaik the delivery man. But I know him as Chaik Obi, the CEO of Obi Express, and my son. The world tilted beneath Amara's feet. Inside the empty staff room, Clara sat across from her like a lioness examining prey. I came here as a courtesy, she began. Before you hear it from someone else. My son is not who you think he is. You've been spending time with him, I hear. Building something. Amara said nothing. You see, Clara continued, Chaik has always had a wild imagination. Playing poor. Wearing rags. Associating with people who can't even pronounce our surname properly. Why are you telling me this? Amara asked, her voice a whisper. Because you deserve to know the truth. My son is a billionaire. He comes from a family that built entire sections of this city. And you? You're a sweet girl. A teacher. You mean well. But let's not pretend you belong in that world. The insult was clear, elegant, precise, and cutting. Are you here to warn me off? Clara smiled again. No, dear. I'm here to offer you a chance. A clean exit. She opened her handbag and slid a white envelope across the desk. 5 million naira, she said smoothly. More than you'll earn in 5 years at this school. Take it. Walk away. Let this be a memory. Amara stared at the envelope. Then at the woman. Then she stood. You came all this way, dressed like royalty, to bribe a woman sitting in a plastic chair? She asked, voice shaking but firm. You don't understand what's at stake, Clara began. Oh, I do, Amara cut in. Your son didn't just lie. He let me fall for a ghost. And now, instead of owning up to it, you're here like some kind of fixer. But money won't fix this. It won't erase the lie. She pushed the envelope back. Tell your son if he has something to say to me, he should say it himself. And with that, she walked out. Clara sat in silence for a moment, face unreadable. Then she stood, adjusted her bag, and whispered, Your dignity is impressive. But dignity doesn't build empires. That evening, Chaik arrived at Amara's house. He didn't need to knock. She was waiting outside. Arms folded. Eyes tired. You lied to me, she said quietly. Chaik opened his mouth, but no words came. Your mother came to my school today, Amara continued. She told me everything. She showed me everything. She offered me money. Amara, you let me care for someone who didn't exist, she said, eyes glistening. All those nights, all those walks, the puff-puff and the poems, you made me fall in love with a man who wasn't real. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did. Silence. Do you even know what it feels like? She asked, voice trembling. To open up to someone, thinking you're equals, only to find out he was measuring you the whole time? It wasn't like that. Wasn't it? Chaik stepped forward. Amara, the man I was when I met you, he was real. The delivery boy. The one who listened. Who laughed. Who helped you carry boxes and dreamed about your library. That man was me. He is me. She looked away. Then why did you hide? Because I was scared. Scared of what? That once you knew, everything would change. Amara nodded slowly. Then wiped her cheek. Now I know. She stepped back toward her door. Good night, Chaik. Amara, please. I need time. And the door closed. Not with a bang. Not with rage. But with the silence of a heart that was just tired. Inside, Amara sank to the floor, back against the door, tears finally spilling. Outside, Chaik stood motionless in the rain. And for the first time since this journey began, he wished he had never hidden. Days passed. But for Chaik, each hour felt like a punishment. He had sent texts. He had called. All he received in return were short replies. I'm fine. I need space. Please don't show up at my gate again. And so, the delivery man who had once lit up at the sight of her smile, now waited in silence. Surrounded by the echoes of what could have been. Kola noticed the shift. He stopped by Chaik's office at the mansion, where the once vibrant zone now sat at his desk, absent-mindedly spinning a pen. She's not picking? Kola asked. Chaik didn't respond. Oga, she deserves to be angry. But anger fades. What stays is trust. If she can't trust you again, you've lost everything. Chaik looked up. His eyes were tired. What if I can't win that trust back? Kola hesitated. Then, an idea. Let's test her. Chaik blinked. You want to test her? No, sir. She already passed the test. Now it's your turn. That evening, as they sat by the fire pit in the mansion's courtyard, Kola laid out the plan. I'll approach her. But not as your staff. She doesn't know me. I'll pose as a wealthy investor. Offer her something tempting, luxury, security, attention. Why? Chaik asked. To see if she's still holding on. If she turns me down, then you'll know her love wasn't for Chaik the delivery man. It was for you through all your flaws. And if she doesn't? Then at least you'll have your answer. Chaik said nothing for a long time. Finally, he nodded. Do it. But don't insult her. She's not a puzzle. Just be respectful. Kola gave a tight nod. I know where the line is. The next afternoon, Kola arrived in a black Mercedes-Benz, wearing a navy blue agbada and gold wristwatch. Clean-shaven. He parked by the school compound and waited. Amara appeared just before closing, her books in one arm, phone in the other. Kola stepped out of the car and walked up with practiced elegance. Excuse me, miss? She looked up, cautious. Yes. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you carry yourself like a woman of substance. My name is Daniel Afalabi. I run a real estate consultancy, and I've been looking for a community project to support. Amara raised an eyebrow. Okay. I noticed the work your school is doing. The weekend literacy program. The reading corner in the community center. Her face softened slightly, surprised that a stranger knew. How did you? I have my sources, Kola smiled gently. I came to make an offer. I'd like to sponsor your dream. Fully. A library, a resource center, anything you need. With your permission, of course. She stared at him. Silent. In return, he added, I'd also like to get to know you. Outside school. Over dinner, perhaps. Amar laughed. Not cruelly, but like someone who had already walked this road before. You don't even know me. True. But I've met many people. Few carry pain the way you do, with grace. She paused. then looked him squarely in the eye. You said your name is Daniel? Yes. Let me be honest, Daniel. That sounds like a beautiful offer. The kind any woman would dream of. But I've already loved someone who pretended to be less than he was. I won't start again by loving someone who pretends to be more. Cola blinked. She continued. Tell whoever sent you that I don't need a rich man. I need a real one. Then, with that quiet fire Chike had fallen in love with, she walked away. That evening, Cola returned to the mansion. He didn't say a word at first. Just walked in, dropped his keys, and poured himself a glass of water. Chike sat across the room, tense, expectant. She passed, Cola said finally. Not just with flying colors. With thunder. Chike exhaled for the first time all day. She said, and I quote, Cola added, tell whoever sent you, I don't need a rich man. I need a real one. Chike covered his face with both hands. Cola smirked. Now boss, it's your move. That weekend, Chike sent one final message. Not a text. Not a voicemail. A handwritten letter, tucked inside a package of Puff Puff and a small bottle of Zobo, delivered by a third-party writer. Amara, I never deserved your kindness. Not when I wore a mask. Not when I let silence explain my sins. You gave me your heart when you thought I had nothing. And I repaid you with doubt. I'm not writing to beg. Or explain. I'm writing to thank you. For feeding me when the world ignored me. For defending me when no one else would. For showing me what it means to be seen. If one day you decide to forgive me, I'll be waiting. Not with a mansion. Not with a title. Just with the same heart that loved you first under a dusty street lamp. Yours always, Chike. He didn't expect a reply. He didn't even hope for one. But 2 days later, as he sat in his mansion library, pretending to read but hearing only silence, his phone buzzed. Let's talk. Tomorrow. At the place where we first shared Puff Puff. Chike stared at the message. The next morning came with a breeze. Not the usual chaotic heat of Lagos, but a soft, hopeful breeze, as if the universe had decided to hold its breath. Chike arrived early. Too early. He stood beside the roadside Puff Puff stand where it had all begun. Where a woman in a mustard blouse had once handed him food with no questions asked. Where his soul had stirred for the first time in years. Now that same woman had agreed to meet him. Not because she had forgiven him, but because she hadn't walked away completely. And that was enough. He saw her approaching from a distance. Hair pulled back. Denim jacket. Simple dress. Her walk was steady, but her eyes revealed the storm still simmering inside. Chike stood. She nodded but didn't smile. They sat on the same bench beside the vendor's table, just a few feet from the dusty street corner where passers-by went about their noisy lives, unaware of the battle unfolding in silence beside them. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then Amara broke the silence. You lied to me, Chike. And you let me give you all of me, when you weren't giving the truth. Chike looked down. I know. Why? His voice was low, raw. Because every time I gave someone my truth, they loved the idea of me. The name. The money. The influence. But you loved my silence. My hunger. My effort. I was terrified that if you saw the mansion, the press, the security, you'd walk away. So instead, she said bitterly, you gave me your poverty and waited to see if I'd stay? Chike winced. I gave you what was real. Just not what was complete. She turned to him, eyes sharp. I don't care about your money, Chike. I never have. But I care about honesty. Because I've seen too many people play pretend in this city. I thought you were different. I am different, he said. But I was also afraid. Afraid that once you saw the wealth, you'd think it was another test. Another performance. I wanted you to meet me before you met the name. Amara stood, pacing. Do you know what it's like to be made a project? She asked, voice rising. To find out that the man you loved was watching you like a social experiment? Seeing if you'd pass the test. Chike stood too. No. You weren't a test, Amar. I was the test. I needed to know if I could still be loved without the noise. Without the weight of my name. You reminded me I was human again. She blinked, caught off guard. Silence again. This time, softer. Then Amara looked at him, eyes glassy. So, what now? Chaik took a deep breath. Now I stop hiding. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone, not his delivery burner, but his real phone. The one tied to his name. To his world. He opened an app, scrolled to a folder, and handed it to her. She looked down. Articles. News features. Forbes profiles. Event photos. All of them, Chaik Obi. Obi Express. Billionaire founder. She swiped, slowly. Then stopped at a photo. In a tuxedo. Standing beside a global tech CEO. Smile perfect. Back straight. Surrounded by money. She looked up. You're really him. I was always me, he said. Just not the me you were expecting. Her jaw tightened. This is a lot, Chaik. He nodded. I know. And I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't blame you. And your mother? Your world? Do you really think they'll let you be with someone like me? Chaik stepped forward. Then let me show you what I'm willing to fight for. That evening, Chaik drove himself, alone, to Amara's neighborhood. No guards. No chauffeur. No fleet. Just one man and his conviction. He knocked on her door and handed her a handwritten invitation. Come with me, he said. Meet my world. On your terms. Check. No titles. No press. No fancy gowns. Just me. And you. She took the envelope. Opened it. You're invited. Charity book drive launch, sponsored by Obi Express Foundation. Venue, Makoko Community Library Project. Date, tomorrow. This is your event? She asked. No, Chaik said. It's ours. It was inspired by your dream. The next day, Amara stood at the edge of the event grounds, still unsure. But what she saw made her eyes widen. It wasn't a typical billionaire gala. There were no red carpets. No flashing lights. No influencers in designer outfits. Just a large open field, a half-constructed building with Makoko Reading Corner, painted on the side, and dozens of children receiving books. And there among them was Chaik, wearing a plain white shirt. Sweating. Lifting boxes. Smiling. He spotted her. Walked over. This place will hold over 3,000 books, he said, catching his breath. I named the children's section Amara's Corner. Hope that's okay. Amara stared at him. You did all this in 2 weeks? No. I've been planning it quietly since the first time you mentioned your dream. Before the lie unraveled. She looked around. The children. The walls. The laughter. You're not just apologizing with words. No, he said. Because you're not just worth words. You're worth everything. She didn't say anything right away. But as the sun began to set and the kids ran off with new books under their arms, she walked beside him quietly. She reached out and took his hand. Chaik turned to her. She didn't look at him, just squeezed gently. This doesn't mean everything's fixed, she said. I know. But it means I'm listening. And just like that, the healing began. Not with fireworks, but with a bench. And a hand that chose to stay. The next few weeks were nothing short of magic. For the first time since the mask fell, Chaik and Amara began to rebuild, not as strangers, not as test and subject, but as two people choosing each other, one day at a time. They took walks again, sat in silence again, laughed without pretending. And though things weren't the same, they were real. But peace, especially in the life of a billionaire, never lasts long. It started subtly. At first, Chaik noticed that certain business calls were going unanswered. Then board members began sending cryptic emails. Then came the worst of it, an article, published by one of the largest gossip blogs in West Africa. Obi Expresso abandons elite heiress for unknown schoolteacher in Surulere, board members concerned about erratic behavior. Accompanying the headline was a blurry photo. Chaik and Amara, walking hand in hand outside the Makoko book drive. By noon it was trending. Hashtag Jacoby. Hashtag deliveryman no more. Hashtag from beggar to billionaire. Hashtag who is Amara. When Amara saw it, she froze. Not because of the headline, but because of the comments. This girl's a scammer. She trapped him. Must be jazz. No way a billionaire leaves a makaleo for a nobody. Watch her crash that company. Later that day, she walked into Chaik's office, trembling. You said your world would be hard, she said quietly. But I didn't know it would come with guns aimed at my name. Chaik got up instantly. I'm already handling it. How? By silencing them? Or by wishing it away? No, he said. By standing beside you. That's how. He took her hand. We'll clear your name. Properly. We'll do an interview. Let them hear your voice. See your heart. She shook her head. I didn't fall in love to become a media subject. I'm not Amara, queen of clickbait. I'm just a woman who wanted to teach children and drink Zobo on quiet nights. Chaik's heart ached. Then let's remind the world of who we are. Together. But before they could begin damage control, his parents struck again. That evening, Chaik returned to his mansion and found them both, Clara and Patrick Obi, waiting in the drawing room like royalty presiding over a scandal. His mother's expression was sharp. His father's, silent but firm. We warned you, Clara said, standing. We told you this girl would bring disgrace. This is my life, Chaik began. No, Patrick interrupted. This is our legacy. And you're not a private citizen, Chaik. You're the face of Obi Express. A brand. A dynasty. Chaik's voice dropped. Then maybe you should find a new face. Clara's nostrils flared. You are not walking away from this family because of a schoolteacher. No. I'm walking towards someone who reminds me what it means to live without hiding. She pulled a letter from her purse. Tossed it on the table. This is from the board. They've requested an emergency meeting. Your recent behavior has raised concerns. Chaik laughed bitterly. Because I fell in love? Because you forgot who you are, Patrick said. No. I remembered. That night, Chaik called Kola. I need you to be ready. For what? To stand beside me if I walk into that boardroom and walk out alone. 2 days later, Chaik sat at the long oval table in the Obi Express executive wing. Every board member was present. So were his parents. And Amakalau. The polished, media-trained socialite his parents once tried to force him to marry. She walked in like she owned the room, taking the empty seat across from Chaik. I wasn't aware this was a casting call, Chaik said flatly. I was invited, Amaka replied with a smile. As a concerned stakeholder. I invested in your last expansion project, remember? Chaik blinked. Of course. A minor investment. Enough to buy a seat and leverage. The chairman of the board cleared his throat. The company is stable. But your public profile is not. We are facing pressure from media, investors, and clients. And we believe it's time for a distance. You want me to leave? Not permanently, Amaka interjected. Just long enough for the storm to pass. Think of it as a sabbatical. Chaik stood, slow and deliberate. Let me be clear, he said, his voice low but powerful. I built this company from a one-room apartment and a rusty delivery bike. I built it long before any of you knew my name. And we're grateful, Clara cut in. But gratitude doesn't run companies. Stability does. Chaik's fists clenched. Then he smiled. Then let me save you the trouble. He reached into his jacket and placed a signed letter on the table. Effective immediately, I'm stepping down as CEO of Obi Express. Guess. Even his father looked stunned. You're throwing everything away for that girl? Clara hissed. No, Chaik said, buttoning his jacket. I'm walking away from everything that never mattered. And with that he walked out. No escort. No speech. Just a man reclaiming his name without the crown. That evening he showed up at Amara's house. She opened the door. Surprised. You look calm. I've never felt more free, Chaik said. What happened? I stepped down. You resigned? Yes. Because you can't serve two masters, money and peace. I choose peace. She looked at him, eyes wide. Then softly asked, Are you sure? He nodded. I didn't lose anything today. I found something. What? Chaik smiled. The man you met the day you gave me puff puff? And didn't ask for anything in return. The world thought he had lost. The headlines said it all. Billionaire walks away from empire over romance with schoolteacher. Obi Express founder steps down amid personal distractions. A fall from power or a leap into love? But Chaik didn't care. Because for the first time in years, he had no board to impress, no stockholders to pacify, no PR handlers whispering about optics. He had freedom. He had Amara. And even if the world didn't understand, he finally understood himself. But peace, once again, was short-lived. This time, the attack came not from the boardroom, but from the streets. One Saturday morning, Chaik walked Amara to the local market. They kept things simple, shopping for beans, peppers, crayfish. He held the basket, she haggled prices. They laughed like old lovers, not public scandal, until a woman recognized him. Isn't that the Obi Express man? Someone else joined. Not him. But why him day wear slippers and carry basket? Laughter. Then the question started. Where your fine babe? That one with makeup and accent. You know see the girl way dem say be schoolteacher? Nah this one be dat. Eyes turned. Phones came out. One woman stepped close, mocking. So this is what a billionaire falls for. Nawa. Gotta beg. Amara stiffened. Chaik put his arm around her protectively. But it was too late. Someone threw sachet water. It burst against Chaik's back. Laughter. Oga billionaire, no vex. Maybe now you go fit cool your body. Chaik turned to confront the crowd. But Amara was already dragging him away, face red with shame. They got home. Chaik tried to speak. She wouldn't let him. You see? This is what I meant, she said, pacing. I can handle the whispers. But not the humiliation. Let them talk, Chaik said. Let them choke on their own mockery. But I'm choking, Chaik. I didn't ask for this. You might have walked away from your empire, but now I'm carrying its ruins. She sat down, trembling. I thought we could build something. Quietly. But your shadow follows us everywhere. I'm starting to forget what silence feels like. Chaik knelt before her. Then let's go, he whispered. Go where? Anywhere. Let's leave Lagos. Let's disappear for a while. No press. No parents. Just air, books, and a house where the only noise is our laughter. Amara blinked. You'd give all this up, again? Chaik smiled. Amara, I already gave up the world. Now I'm just asking to keep you. That same week, they packed their bags and headed to a small town in Ogun State. Far from the buzzing horns and blogs. Far from boardrooms and broken legacies. Their new home was simple. A 2-bedroom bungalow beside a riverbank. Amara took up teaching in a local school, paid voluntarily with no need for government wages. Chaik spent his days helping local farmers set up delivery cooperatives, quietly, without putting his name on anything. Evenings were spent reading, sometimes dancing, sometimes sitting in silence, watching the moon reflect on the river. They made friends who didn't know their last names. They ate roasted plantain under the stars. It wasn't magic, but it was peace. Until once again the past came knocking. One morning, a black SUV pulled up beside their gate. The knock was gentle, but firm. Amara answered. It was Kola. He stepped in, eyes darting around, impressed. So this is where you've been hiding, Oga? Chaik emerged from the backyard, wiping sweat from his brow. We're not hiding. We're healing. Kola chuckled, but his face turned serious quickly. I came with news. Good or bad? Depends how you look at it. He handed Chaik a tablet. Your resignation triggered an outcry. Investors panicked. Stock dropped. But then, people started asking for you. Not the company. You. Chaik frowned. Turns out, walking away made them realize who built the empire. He scrolled through headlines. Chaik Obi trends as the people's billionaire. Delivery boy who became king. Fans call for comeback. Obi Express faces lawsuit over mishandling CEO resignation. Chaik blinked. What are you saying? Kola sat down. The board wants you back. Not just back, they're begging. But this time with terms. My terms. Exactly. Chaik glanced at Amara, who stood at the doorway, unsure. Kola continued. They want you to return as chairman emeritus. No day-to-day politics. No interference. Full creative control. You build what you want. With who you want. Then, he paused. They want to partner on your rural delivery project. The one you've been building here. Chaik stared at him. Why the sudden change of heart? Because sometimes, the world only values peace when they realize it builds better than power. That night, Chaik and Amara sat by the river, feet in the water. If I go back, Chaik said, I won't be the same man. I won't chase the world. I'll just serve it. And me? She asked, smiling softly. You. He turned to her. You'll be the reason I come home. She laughed. Then fell quiet. So you'll be their boss again, with me in this small house? He took her hand. No. With you beside me in any house. Rich or poor. As long as it's ours. Amara looked up at the stars. Then let them talk. Let them write. Let them wonder who I am. She kissed his cheek. Because now I know who you are. It had been 6 months since Chaik stepped away from the empire he built with his bare hands. 6 months of silence. 6 months of growing roots in peace, not profit. But when he returned to Lagos, this time not in a convoy of black SUVs, but a simple saloon car, the air felt different. The Obi Express headquarters had changed. It was colder. Sharper. The receptionists whispered when they saw him. Oga Chaik. He's back. Even the elevator ride felt heavier, like the building itself remembered who he once was. He entered the boardroom with no fanfare. No security. No briefing team. Just Chaik and Kola, flanking him with a silent nod. At the far end of the table sat Clara and Patrick Obi. No longer smug. Just tense. Amaka Alao wasn't present this time. She had since moved on, rumored to be dating a foreign tech investor. Good for her. This moment wasn't about the past. It was about what came next. The chairman rose. On behalf of the board, thank you for agreeing to meet. We'd like to extend a formal reinstatement offer. Chaik raised a hand calmly. I'm not here for reinstatement. Gasps rippled down the table. I'm here to restructure. He dropped a sleek folder on the table. Inside, his vision proposal, a hybrid model of corporate leadership and social innovation. I don't want a title. I want autonomy. No press obligations. No mandatory dinners. No arranged marriages in disguise, he added, eyes briefly flicking to his mother. I will return, not to maintain an image, but to build a legacy. My way. Silence. Then Patrick Obi leaned forward. And if we say no? Chaik smiled. Then the delivery boy who built this company from scratch will do it again. From scratch. The pause. The chairman cleared his throat. The vote was already unanimous. We accept your terms, Chaik. Welcome back. Not back. Forward. In the weeks that followed, Chaik quietly resumed influence, not through speeches or interviews, but through action. His first official act as chairman emeritus? He opened a new logistics hub in Makoko. Not the flashy island. Not the elite Lekki Phase 1. Makoko. The same place where the dust of poverty first stained his slippers, and where Amara gave him puff-puff with no questions asked. At the launch, Amara stood beside him, no longer just the schoolteacher. She was his partner. And in front of media cameras, children, dignitaries, and even skeptical investors, he introduced her first. This woman, he said, holding her hand, taught me the power of quiet dignity. She reminded me that Real love doesn't recognize Forbes lists. It recognizes effort, truth, and the ability to see a man beyond his name. Applause erupted. But Amara just looked at him, smiling softly. Not because of the crowd. Because of the man beside her. But behind the applause, not everyone clapped sincerely. From the shadows of the press crowd, someone watched. A man in a gray suit. Face familiar. Eyes cold. That night, Chaik received a message. A simple one. A photo. Amara. Leaving her school. Followed by the man in the gray suit. And a caption. You think you can walk away from what you built? Not without consequences. Chaik's blood ran cold. Not again, he whispered. He called Kola instantly. We have a problem. Talk to me. I need you to track a man. Gray suit. Possibly linked to a rival logistics syndicate. He's been following Amara. Already on it. Also, Chaik added grimly, tighten security. Quietly. I don't want her to panic. The next day, Amara noticed a black car trailing her after work. When she arrived home, Chaik was already waiting, face pale. Why are we being followed? Because not everyone wants peace. Some people lose money when others gain clarity. She frowned. Are we in danger? Chaik stepped closer. Not as long as I'm breathing. But deep down, he knew something had changed. This wasn't just about business. It was about revenge. Someone, perhaps from his past, perhaps from within, had decided that his resurrection was a threat. And Amara? She had become his soft spot. His weakness. His everything. Later that night, Chaik stood on the balcony, staring into the Lagos skyline. He held Amara's hand quietly as they listened to the distant hum of generators and passing traffic. They're coming for us, she whispered. Let them come, he said. They're about to learn what happens when you try to destroy a man who's already lost everything and still chose love. 4 days, the threat remained invisible but present. Chaik became more vigilant. He rerouted Amara's work routes. Installed silent tracking systems. Assigned unmarked surveillance around her school. But still, no message. No attacker. No second strike. Just silence. A waiting silence. A dangerous silence. Then one evening, while Chaik was away attending a closed-door logistics summit in Abuja, Amara vanished. She had left school at 2 p.m. Didn't return home by 3 o'clock. By 4:15, her phone stopped ringing. At 5:22, Kola called Chaik mid-meeting. Boss, we have a problem. Where is she? CCTV caught her turning into Freedom Street, near the church. But the cameras after that? Cut off. Sabotaged? Possibly. We're pinging her last location now. Chaik didn't wait. He left the summit immediately, mid-speech, no explanation. By the time he boarded the private jet, his hands were shaking. He wasn't scared of death. He wasn't scared of failure. But he had finally found someone who mattered more than power. And now they were gone. When he landed in Lagos, Kola was waiting with a black dossier. Inside was a name. Chief Kelvin Otunla. An ex-board member. Expelled years ago for corruption. He had tried to push Chaik out once before. Disgraced. Humiliated. Forgotten. Or so they thought. Turns out he had not disappeared. He had been plotting. Kelvin had resurfaced under a shell corporation. Buying up rival delivery firms. Hiring private security. And worst of all, he had quietly married Amaka Alau. The same Amaka who once sat across from Chaik at board meetings, sipping wine and plotting his public image. He's trying to build a rival empire, Kola said. And what better way than to destroy the image of yours? By targeting Amara? Chaik growled. Exactly. Then we hit back. They traced a signal from Amara's last phone ping to an abandoned estate in the outskirts of Ape. At 3:42 a.m., Chaik and Kola, along with 2 trusted former security guards, drove out in silence. No police. No press. No spectacle. Just a man who wasn't going to lose love again. They arrived at the compound. Rusting gates. Overgrown bushes. Broken lights. Inside the house, they heard movement. Then her voice. You don't have to do this. Chaik's heart raced. He kicked the door open, sweeping in like thunder. Amara. She was tied to a chair, bruised but alive. Standing behind her, smirking, was Kelvin Otunla. So, Kelvin said calmly, the great Chaik Obi returns. Still dramatic. Still sentimental. Chaik didn't speak. He aimed a small handheld camera at him. This is being live-streamed to a secure server. One wrong move and your next scandal will not be about love, it'll be about attempted murder. Kelvin shrugged. Murder? I wouldn't touch her. I just wanted you to understand. You chose peace over power. But men like us, we don't get peace. We take power. No, Chaik replied coldly. You take prisoners. I build legacies. Kola stepped forward, fists clenched. But Chaik stopped him. He walked slowly to Amara, untied her gently, eyes never leaving Kelvin. You want my company? Chaik said. Take the building. Take the board. Take the name. Kelvin narrowed his eyes. What? You can have all of it, Chaik continued. The trucks. The shares. Even the public praise. But here's what you'll never have. He pulled Amara close. A woman who stayed when I had nothing. A heart that doesn't care about status. A life that doesn't need performance. Kelvin laughed. You think love is enough to stop me? Chaik smiled. No. But evidence is. He clicked a small remote in his pocket. A speaker crackled. Kelvin's voice played, recorded from a bug planted earlier. Tie her up. Quietly. I want the media to see him weak. Guess. Kelvin lunged, panicked. Security tackled him. Chaik helped Amara. She held on to him, shaking. That night, the story broke across all platforms. Rival billionaire arrested for kidnap plot against Obi Express founder's fiancé. Chaik Obi rescues partner in daring midnight raid. Hashtag love over legacy trends worldwide. The next morning, Chaik and Amara returned to their quiet river house. She had a cut on her lip. He had a scratch on his hand. But their hearts? Still intact. Stronger than ever. I'm sorry, Chaik whispered. I thought we had outrun this world. But I brought it back to your door. Amara touched his face. Don't you understand? You didn't bring the world. You brought you. And I'd follow you into fire, Chaik Obi. Because I know, after everything, you'd carry me out. He kissed her gently. And whispered, then let the world come. By morning, the story had gone viral, not just in Nigeria, but internationally. News channels flooded the airwaves with one name. Chaik Obi. But this time, it wasn't about the scandal. This time, it was about courage. Billionaire risks life to save lover. From delivery boy to hero. What kind of man chooses love over empire, twice? And then it happened. Something no one could have predicted. The people spoke. First, it was a trickle of anonymous posts. Then blogs. Then mainstream media. Then influencers. From market women to political analysts. Began calling him the people's billionaire. Not for his money. Not for his cars. Not for his suits. But for his humanity. And so, under pressure from both the public and the boardroom, Obi Express rebranded. Gone were the cold marketing campaigns. Now, every delivery vehicle bore a new slogan. Driven by heart. Built on trust. Chaik didn't return to the CEO seat. He didn't need to. Instead, he launched a foundation in Amara's name, the Amara Hope Initiative, focused on rural education, women empowerment, and child literacy. Amara tried to protest. I don't need the spotlight. Chaik only smiled. Then let the spotlight become a lighthouse for others. But just when things seemed to finally settle, a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. Chaik opened it. If only you knew who really betrayed you. No signature. Just a symbol, a stylized letter A in red ink. Chaik's brow furrowed. What is this? Amara took the note, scanned it. Then she froze. That symbol. You know it. She nodded slowly. It was on a letterhead I once saw, on a desk. Back at the company, long before we ever met. Whose desk? Amake's. Chaik's eyes narrowed. But Amake's married to Kelvin. She was part of the plot. What if she wasn't? Silence. A deeper truth was rising, uninvited. What if Amaka hadn't been a pawn? What if she had been a queen, making moves of her own? Later that week, Kola confirmed it. Boss, you need to see this. He laid down a stack of confidential memos and emails. Amaka had partnered with a foreign logistics syndicate 3 years prior. She had recruited Kelvin, funded rival firms, even leaked boardroom secrets to the press during Chaik's first downfall. She wasn't a lover scorned. She was a rival disguised in romance. But the real twist? She had once been engaged to Chaik's late brother. Yes, Chaik had a brother. Twin. Dead from a car crash years ago. A brother who had rejected Amaka's marriage proposal, calling her too cold, too ambitious. She never forgave your family, Kola said. She waited. And you, unfortunately, were next in line. Chaik sat quietly. The world thought his battle was over. But the war was still burning, quietly. He looked at Amara. If I chase this, I might destroy everything. And if you don't? She'll rise again. Smarter. Louder. Amara reached out and held his hand. Then don't fight her like a businessman. Fight her like the man you've become. So Chaik went public. He called a press conference. Not in a hotel, not in a boardroom, but under the mango tree in the village where he first delivered parcels. He stood in front of news cameras and told the full truth. I was never perfect. I made mistakes. But behind every fall was a lesson. And behind every betrayal was someone I chose to forgive. To Amaka Alao, I forgive you. To the public, I thank you. To my wife, Amara, I stand here today not as a billionaire, but as your husband. And if that is all I am for the rest of my life, I will die fulfilled. The video trended for 12 days straight. #LoveOverLegacy. #Amara's the gift. Even foreign dignitaries wrote letters of praise. He was offered awards, TV deals, book contracts. He refused them all. I'm not a celebrity. I'm just a man who remembered what mattered. That night, Amara whispered. So, what now? Chaik pulled her close. Now we rest. And if trouble ever comes again. He kissed her forehead. We'll face it. Together. Months passed. No more kidnappings. No more sabotage. No more backroom boardroom betrayals. Just peace. A peace so quiet that Chaik almost didn't trust it. But Amara? She taught him how to sit in silence without suspicion. Not all storms are warnings, she'd say with a smile. Some are just passing clouds. And for the first time in his life, Chaik believed her. They moved again. This time, not to hide, not to run, but to start over. A modest 2-story home on the outskirts of Calabar, overlooking the water, with space for trees, children, and chickens. Yes, Amara wanted chickens. I'm tired of city life. Let's grow something. Something that doesn't depend on stock prices. Chaik chuckled. You're marrying a former billionaire. I don't know how to raise chickens. You raised a company from dust. How hard can birds be? Their wedding was small but sacred. No helicopters. No paparazzi. No political guests. Just a barefoot ceremony beneath the same mango tree where Chaik once delivered Amara a forgotten envelope. She wore a simple white lace gown. He wore a linen kaftan. And when the local choir sang, even the birds seemed to pause and listen. Kola stood beside him as best man, dabbing at his eyes. You're soft now, Oga. I'm free now, Chaik replied. The vows were simple. I once had everything, Chaik said, voice trembling, and felt nothing. Then I lost everything, and found you. Amara took his hands. You were never poor, Chaik. You just didn't know what wealth really was. They kissed under the mango tree. The same tree where so many secrets were once hidden. And beneath it, they buried something. A box. Inside, Chaik's old name tag from his delivery days. The first letter Amara ever wrote him. The business card of Obi Express, scratched with the word, let go. A symbolic grave. A farewell to ambition that cost too much. In the weeks that followed, Chaik turned fully inward. He woke at 5 a.m. to feed chickens. He joined Amara on early morning school visits. He mentored teenagers in local trade schools. He was no longer Mr. Obi. He was Uncle Chaik. To them, he wasn't a billionaire. He was the man who listened, who laughed, who showed up. And then came the letter. Another one. But this time, it was not from an enemy. It was from a lawyer. Your inheritance clause has been triggered, it read. Your son, Chisholm Emmanuel Obi, is now of age. A trust left by your late brother awaits activation. Chaik froze. My brother had a son? Amara touched his shoulder gently. You okay? He nodded. I think I need to meet him. The next day, Chaik boarded a quiet bus, not a private jet, not an escort, to a secondary school in Bainway. He found the boy easily. Eyes like his late brother. Chaik watched from a distance as the teenager ran football drills with his classmates. That's him, the principal confirmed. Smart, quiet, doesn't talk about his family much. When Chaik finally introduced himself, Chisholm blinked. You look like the man in the photo my mom keeps hidden. Chaik smiled. That man was my twin brother. Your father. They sat under a tree. And for the next hour, Chaik told the boy everything. About the mistakes. About the empire. About the mango tree. About love found in low places. I don't want you to carry my name for status, Chaik said. I want you to carry it for purpose. Chisholm looked at him. Then show me how. That night, Chaik returned home to Amara, who greeted him barefoot at the garden gate. How was it? Life-changing. Do you think he'll want to be part of this life? Chaik nodded. He already is. She leaned in and kissed his cheek. Welcome to fatherhood. As crickets sang in the distance and the moon bathed the garden in silver light, Chaik whispered something to himself. If only they knew. He smiled. The poor delivery man was never poor. He was just waiting to deliver himself to the right home. Once upon a time, he had everything, then lost it all to find what mattered. Now, under the mango tree that had silently watched over his rise, fall, and resurrection, Chaik Obi stood tall. But this time, not as a CEO, not as a delivery man, not even as a viral hero, as a father, as a husband, as a man finally at peace. 3 months after meeting his nephew son Chisholm, Chaik invited him to spend a summer at their home. What began as awkward conversations over boiled yam and egusi soup became late-night laughter, lessons on resilience, and bonding over farm chores. Amara watched them from the porch one evening, her hand on her belly. She was pregnant. You haven't told him yet? She smiled. I will, Chaik said. But let's let him have this moment. Before everything changes again. That same week, the world once again knocked at Chaik's door. A major media house from the UK offered to buy the rights to his life story. Millions. Worldwide syndication. Netflix adaptation talks. Kola called him about it, voice buzzing with excitement. Oga, this is huge. Everyone wants to hear how you went from a beggar to a billionaire back to the village. Chaik paused. Then let them hear it from me. But not for fame. And not for money. Then for what? For legacy. For every boy who thinks silence means weakness. For every girl who believes loyalty won't be rewarded. And so, Chaik wrote the story himself. Every night, after the chickens had been fed and Amara had fallen asleep beside him, he would sit at the small desk facing the garden and write. His story. Unfiltered. Unpolished. Unapologetically honest. He titled it, If Only They Knew the Poor Delivery Man Was Actually a Handsome Billionaire. And he dedicated it to 3 people. His late brother, who taught him the cost of pride. Amara, who taught him the value of truth. And Chisholm, who taught him that love isn't inherited. It's chosen. The book went on to sell over 10 million copies worldwide. Translated into 19 languages. Read in schools, prisons, and boardrooms. Not because it had scandals. Not because it had riches. But because it had heart. At the book launch, held under the same mango tree with just a few chairs and a local children's choir, Chaik stood and read his final chapter aloud. People ask me what I would have done differently. I tell them, if I hadn't fallen, I wouldn't have learned to stand again. If I hadn't disguised myself as a delivery man, I would have never met the one person who delivered me. If I hadn't lost my wealth, I'd never have discovered my worth. He closed the book. Tears filled the crowd. And Amara, holding Chisholm's hand with her other hand resting on her belly, whispered, You did it. You found your voice. Chaik looked at them both. No, he smiled. I found my family. Years later, long after Chaik had stopped granting interviews and returned fully to the quiet rhythm of home, a group of university students showed up at his doorstep. They wanted to start a foundation for underprivileged youth, and asked if they could name it after him. Chaik declined. Name it after yourselves. After your struggle. After your future. I've had enough names. Let this one belong to you. And so, they called it The Mango Tree Foundation, where broken beginnings grow beautiful endings. And that's how the world finally understood. The poor man in faded overalls was never poor. He was simply a king waiting for the right kingdom. And in the end he found it.